Welcome back to Normal Island. I'm Curtis Daly, and it's Friday, or some people say Friday. Or was that kind of show my age? That means I'm joined by the wonderful Sarah Delau. Sarah, how are you feeling? It's a Friday. It's the weekend.
It is the weekend. Yeah, really, really good. And the sun's been shining,
It
so I don't
has.
think we have much to complain about. But I don't think it's been a slow news week, has it? I'm taking Lewis's verbiage. There's a lot been going on in the news recently.
It never is, does it?
Yeah.
Sometimes you want a bit of a relaxing show or relaxing day. No, it's always busy. Also, not to put a damper on it, but I heard it's going to be cloudy tomorrow.
Well,
But then again, I'm living in Leeds. I don't know
I
about you
didn't.
if this might be
Yeah,
true.
but isn't Leeds always cloudy?
Well, sunny today.
Joking. Joking.
Anyway, I'm so excited for the stories tonight, and I'm glad I'm joined by Sarah. Coming up on tonight's show, the Greens win a key council election, Andrew Tate attacks Gary Stevenson, and our reform on course to win the next election. As always, remember to like the stream. And if you're not a subscriber, then please hit that button. Help us reach our goal of 40,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We're approaching 24,000. So if you guys can help us, maybe we can hit 25 by the end of the month. We'll be getting to your comments at the end. So please make sure you are busy in the chat. Now, on to our first story. The Green Party just won a key council election in a Labour stronghold. The Greens gain Haringey Council from Labour with a huge swing. And you can see Labour are down 21 points. It's an impressive victory because, one, it's in David Lammy's constituency. And two, the amount of votes the Greens won compared to Labour is pretty astonishing. As you can see, Rory Patton won 1,059 votes to Labour's Stephen Tawiah with 589. So that's almost double the votes. Now, what were the key takeaways from the election? Well, we have a little bit of an insight from Navarra's Ash Sarkar. The candidate Rory Patton is one of my best friends, so I can't claim to be impartial. But from my vantage point, the key factors were these. They ran a great campaign powered by volunteers. Over the course of election day, 80 to 100 volunteers showed up for Get Out the Vote, mad for a single council seat. Voters are genuinely pissed off at Labour. Winter fuel allowance, benefit cuts, and Gaza all came up on the doorstep. Greens probably benefited from Labour dominance in Haringey Council. The pitch was, why not vote for someone else this time? Labour will still have control, but you'll have someone pushing them. Now, early on today, I had the pleasure of speaking to Green Party Deputy Leader Zach Polansky, and I spoke to him about the election results.
Yeah, I'm phenomenally excited to have Councillor Patton now elected. This is a really big result. If I start with the context, Haringey has been traditionally a Labour stronghold. Of anywhere in the country where you might have thought people will keep voting Labour and they will never stop voting Labour, it would be somewhere like Haringey, and actually to have returned such a major vote. And it's not really a surprise to me. I was out door knocking yesterday for election day, and you almost couldn't find a Labour voter, person after person saying they are done with Labour. They're not even returning to Labour, even when Starmer's gone. They say it's time for a new party, and they've turned to the Green Party. So it's immensely exciting. It's exciting for London, but also being in Doncaster, there's obviously lots of differences between Haringey and Doncaster, but there's also lots of similarities. This is a street, again, where people have told me, I've just met a woman who said she's been voting Labour 84 years. They've just cut her winter fuel payments. They've just cut her TV licence. She said, I'm never voting Labour again, and again is looking to the Green Party. So there's a real moment here to present an alternative and a difference. But if anyone wants to know why we won in Haringey, I think it's quite simple. It's traditional campaigning. We had a really good candidate, lots of people turning out. 120 people turned up yesterday to volunteer for Rory. That's partly a testament to Rory himself and his amazing campaign manager, Erin. And I also think it's a testament to the fact we're at this moment in politics where the Labour government has absolutely failed. Reform are circling in, but we can reject that politics of division. We can reject that politics that is toxic and actually say, let's have a politics that's about community, compassion, action on the climate, action on the cost of living crisis. And I think that's a winning combination that's resulted with over 50% of the vote.
When you're speaking to people locally, is there a real battle between the Greens and Reform?
Yeah, there are lots of places where people are saying to me constantly, we're either going to vote for Reform or the Green Party. I should say that wasn't Haringey. There was hardly a Reform voter around. But places like Doncaster, where I am today, that definitely sometimes is the narrative. And I think you can understand why that's the narrative. It sounds counterintuitive, but actually people are sick of the Labour Party and they're never going to vote for the Tories again. So they are looking for something different. And the thing that I keep saying to people, because it's absolutely true, is Nigel Farage paints himself as some sort of anti-establishment, workers' rights guy, yet he is literally the definition of the establishment.
When I look at national polling, you've got Reform doing pretty damn well. Okay, they're top of the polls, and some of them, their suggestions they're going to form a government. When it comes to the Greens, there doesn't seem that much movement. There has been a couple, that've got the Greens on like 11%. It's good to see them in double digits. I want to see them higher, of course. But really, the party it's doing well in the national polling is Reform. But when it comes to local elections, the Greens are smashing it. That's just the truth. They are smashing it locally, and Reform aren't. So it's a really weird sort of opposite effect going on here. What do you think that is? Do you think it's potentially that national polling is overblowing Reform support, or do you think that Reform's base of support is entirely on national politics, the media helping them, but when it comes to grassroots local politics, it's not there? What's your take on that?
Yeah, really interesting question. I think there's two things there. So the first thing to say is the Green Party at the last general election were not polling anywhere near where I want them to be. And I want to be clear about that. I'm not being complacent about this. However, we also knew we did not need to worry about it because the way that we have been winning seats is targeting. Now, targeting does not show up in national polling. And actually, if it does show up in national polling, you're probably not targeting properly because the places you need are places that need all your resource and need all your energy. So that's exactly why we were seeing ourselves go from 5th place in seats, where the national media was saying you don't have a chance in somewhere like North Herefordshire, to coming out first. And by the way, North Herefordshire is an interesting seat because if you take that swing and put it on any Westminster seat in the country, there is no seat that the Green Party can't win. The only obstacle right now is fundraising, which is ultimately results in targeting. So then I think the second part of your question becomes really relevant. I don't want to keep, we're polling more than we've ever had before, but I'm not happy about it. I want to see us polling much more. But that's not because I think national polls still equal seats. I think what national polls equal is confidence in people with fundraising and building a mass movement. I want to see the Green Party, wherever you are, in England and Wales and Scotland too for the Scottish Greens, to be a party that is ultimately building where people know that is the home of the left, that is the home of socialist politics, that is the home of progressive politics, whatever label you want to put it on. If you are rejecting the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, rejecting the two-old party system, you know that is the landing place for the kind of politics that you want to see that mass movement. We know the narrative is often that Jeremy Corbyn failed. It is a ridiculous narrative. Jeremy Corbyn got 3 million more votes than Keir Starmer did when he got a landslide. What Jeremy Corbyn didn't do, partly because he was undermined by his entire party institution, was he didn't win the seats in the targeted places that he needed to. So I think, this is a mixed answer. Polling does matter. I want to see us polling better, but actually it's a distraction if that's the primary thing you're looking at. The really important thing in a first past the post system is those seats that you're targeting, are you winning those MPs? And then the final thing I'd say is you can't become the Liberal Democrats. The Liberal Democrats have become a party that have really mastered targeted constituencies, which is why they won 72 MPs. But what do they stand for? What are they actually changing? Would I take 72 MPs? Absolutely. I'd love to have that. Sometimes we've over-targeted. So we went for 4 MPs and all of those 4 MPs won with pretty big majorities. In Bristol Central, where it was, the media was saying this is going to be very close between Carla Denyer and Thangam Debonair, or should I say Baroness Debonair now, because you can vote people out, but they'll still be in Parliament. That's the system we're in. But it wasn't even close. Carla absolutely smashed it. No complacency. Next time we'll still work for every single vote. But actually you look back and in hindsight and you go, we could have been more ambitious. But then with lack of resources and funding, which is why the fundraising becomes so important, I think it was right to be Conservative with a small c. But next time I want to see us bolder. I want to see us more ambitious. I want to see us build a huge mass movement. But if we had 72 MPs as the Green Party, we would have a coherent narrative, a theory of change, and we would be challenging the government. That's what you've got to do when you're winning power. If you win power or MPs just for MPs' sake, but you don't have a consistency to your messaging, a consistency to your party, I would say, is there any real point? So it's a combination. We need polling, We need bolder messaging. And ultimately, when we are looking at many more MPs and looking at even being in the balance of power with the government, that is when we need a coherent narrative. That's when we need the politics of environmental, social, racial, and economic justice. Absolutely convinced we need to do it. I'm absolutely convinced we will do it, but it requires us to be much bolder.
That was Zach Polanski. I really appreciate it. Very busy in the schedule. He's outside because he was in the middle of campaigning, actually, or going to a celebratory win, and then he's doing more campaigning. Sarah, I wanted to get your view on the election results. And what do you make of the fact that national polling, has Reform topping a lot of these polls, but the Greens seem to be hardly moving?
I mean, it's interesting because I think what Reform can successfully do is kind of talk big on the likes of GB News or talk big on social media, but when it actually comes to running a legitimate campaign in local elections, they won't really generally do that well, because it means that you need to do real work. It means organizing people, it means governing, it means helping real people, it means having the real conversations. And I don't think Reform the party could actually organise a piss up in Wetherspoons, or maybe they could, but I don't think that they are capable of actually getting into a grassroots effort when it comes to getting numbers. Whereas the Greens, on the other hand, do those things. They get volunteers on site. They make sure that they are there discussing the things that matter to people, the rising bills, the benefit cuts, taxing a wealth tax. Like, they do the work by getting people on board. And that's why they do so well in local elections. Whereas Reform, it's very much like, let me try and be as reactionary as possible. And get as many views as I can on a video. I think we saw recently what Nigel Farage was doing, where he was pretending to get a tattoo. And I can't remember what the tattoo was of, but everyone in the comments was like, yeah, man for the people. And I was like, can you not see? He's trying to deceive you. He's trying to pretend he's a working man, but he's not. So nationally does great because he can get on the algorithm. Green Party do great locally because it's a grassroots effort.
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned about, I think there's between 1,800 volunteers for a local council election, that's a lot of people. I mean, when we talk about the general election or a by-election, for Parliament, that's the sort of numbers you see, maybe 500 for a popular person. But for a local councillor, it's really impressive. And the Greens are very grassroots.
They are.
But of course, you want them to sweep nationwide. I do understand what Zach was saying in terms of, essentially, the polling doesn't show that the Greens were second in 40 different seats. And polling is flawed. So I do hope that, look, they kind of outperformed at the last election anyway. I expect them to do that this time.
So do I. When you think about national polling, I think it's interesting to compare Reform to Green. They won the exact number of seats, right? It was 4 each. So with that, it meant that Reform are rising because they're loud, very loud, they're angry, and they pretend to care about working people. But it's enough to kind of get people turning their heads. Meanwhile, the Greens, who have been consistent, and I'll obviously back them wholeheartedly, have been consistent on public ownership, have been consistent on Gaza, have been consistent on housing. They're still seen as a niche option to like Guardian readers. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, who own Keep Cups. So it's like, if they want, I think their biggest challenge, I think if they want more people on board on a national scale, they've got the policy, they've got the grassroots, now they just need to cut through. And I think we just need to be more aggressive on the left. And I'm not saying let's emulate the right in ways that are unreasonable and reactionary and sensationalist. Like, obviously not, because that's not what the left stands for. But I do think we need to have aggression when it comes to our advocacy, really. And that's what I see happen on Reform side, on the right.
Very much agree. I agree. But I think we're going to move on. Let's move on to our second story of the evening. Andrew Tate has attacked Gary Stevenson. On a podcast with the country's worst landlord, Samuel Leeds, Tate attacked Stevenson for calling for higher taxes on the rich.
I saw some guy, I don't know his name, he was on Twitter, skinny little dipshit, begging for the government to tax us more.
I was going to talk to you about him. Are you on about Gary Economics?
Must be him, yeah.
Is he like got skinhead?
Yeah. Skinny
Gary
dipshit.
Stevenson.
Every revolution in history began with the assassination of the tax man, not sucking the tax man off, hoping he taxes you more. That's not a revolution.
Right.
That is garbage. And the fact that he thinks giving the UK government any more money when they do nothing but waste it. They have hundreds of billions for Ukraine. Hundreds of billions for Ukraine. Why? Because they launder it. So he thinks, let's give the criminals who steal all the money more of our money and maybe it'll all work out because our kids need a future. There's no future as long as you're dealing with crooks, sir. And if you think you could tax rich people, you're also an idiot.
Right.
Because let me tell you from a rich person, we leave. There is no rich person on the planet.
Or restructure things.
Or restructure things. That's right. I can restructure my life and still visit England and enjoy England while having my wealth elsewhere and not pay the taxes.
Yeah.
So he obviously doesn't know very much for an economics fucking whatever he's supposed to be.
Interesting though, because I actually think if you listen to a lot of what he said...
I think he works for the fucking Matrix. I think he's been paid. I think they've put him somewhere, they've put him in. Think about this. Let's analyze this. Like professionals. Let's be professionals.
Go on.
Labor come in.
Yeah.
They're going to put everyone's taxes up, fuck everyone over, remove the winter fuel allowance, and wreck everybody. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, some skinny dipshit is all over the internet begging for higher taxes just before the higher taxes come. Is this a coincidence?
Why is he shouting at me? I mean, can he talk to us, but don't shout at me? Now, if you don't recognise the other person, that's Samuel Leeds. He's a landlord who owned a company called Buy Low, Rent High. He's now changed its name, and I wonder why. Essentially, you have two insufferable people telling us nothing new. You're poor? Well, that's entirely your fault. The circumstances you find yourself in, the state of the economy, inequality, none of that matters. You just got to be better, bro. Sarah, before we talk about the actual substance, I first want to get your take on this slop podcast bro content. It's the same shit over and over again. There's nothing new.
No, nothing new. I'm so glad you said, why is he shouting? Because I genuinely was like, bloody hell, let me turn the volume down. Why are you screaming at me? I mean, yeah, nothing new except the fact that we've got, you know, a growing pile of gym memberships that people are paying for every single month and crypto losses. Like, that's what they want. And it's the same grift, Curtis, this whole idea that two men in tight t-shirts with microphones in front of them have these worldviews that poverty is a mindset and that the only reason that billionaires are rich is because they're just better at being men. Essentially, they're selling this to young men, they're selling this to boys, being like, we just need to work harder, graft a little bit. And I think Tate and Leeds, I mean, I hate the fact that he's a landlord, it makes me hate him even more, are the equivalent of like a spam email trying to promise you that you can get rich in 10 easy steps. They're just they have these pyramid schemes where they promise you that you can get rich by enlisting on Hustlers University, etc., etc. And actually, that's not the case at all. They are not financially literate. They just financially gaslight you because the only people who are going to be getting richer are them, not the people investing in these ridiculous get-rich-quick schemes that don't actually work. And it's just so insane to me because if anyone's watched the whole video, the things that he says are like egregious. They are heinous about Gary Stevenson. But him even trying to say that because you know you're broke because you didn't hustle hard enough and you're sucking the tax man off, like it's just like, are you forgetting that we've lived through years and years of austerity and that wages have stagnated in the way that they have, or that house prices have absolutely quadrupled? Of course, a landlord won't admit to that because he's the one that's having working people, skimming from the working people. And they're investing in this unregulated like rental market, so he's not going to say anything. But Tate shouting at us, being like, "You're not hustling hard enough." Like, shut up! Stop talking! Stop shouting!
I mean, there's so many things he said which was complete and utter bullshit within that, and it's hard to kind of pick through. But he was saying, "Oh, actually," because he cut Samuel off. I think Samuel was going to say, "Actually, if you listen to him, I don't know if he was going to say some of the things he said was right. I don't know." But Tate cut him off anyway because he loves the sound of his voice. And he was saying, well, it's the Matrix. What I think is, because I mean, he tries and, I mean, he's English, right? But that American accent comes out. He's getting paid to do it. So you're telling me he's getting paid to call for high taxes? Well, who's paying him? I mean, and also there's this idea that, like, well, basically, he also said that every revolution has been about assassinating the taxman. Where did he get that from? That has no historical relevance. It's not true. I mean, that means nothing. I mean, obviously, I don't expect them to know how revolutions come about, but it does speak to this idea that the government is corrupt. And yes, pretty much every government in the world is corrupt.
Yeah.
But if it's by the government, it's automatically bad. If it's in like the private sector, that's fine. And that speaks to, I think, a lot of people who go down the anti-establishment pipeline, they almost become quite left-wing. And they go right-wing and they sort of go the libertarian route, which is, I like hearing people saying the government is corrupt. I want freedom. And the thing is, though, the reason why the government was set up was the mediatory between government and economic power. The point was to say there is a middleman between the very wealthy and large corporations and ordinary working people. And there are things that the government has done that has massively helped us. Just because that governments are corrupt and often serve the very richest doesn't mean you want to get rid of it. But obviously it benefits it, doesn't it?
No, exactly. No, completely agree. Those are really great points. And I think Tate is just a symptom of a really corrupt society, I think. One where austerity is on the rise, where the cost of living crisis is on the rise, where wages have stagnated. And he's very much aware of it. Like, he's not stupid. And there's so many Tates out there that echo the same things as him. His rant, you're absolutely right, was full of bluster and falsehoods. And him attacking, obviously, Gary Stevenson with insults is because he can't engage with Gary's substance, essentially. It is like, well, okay, so you want to just, well, tax the wealthy, or what are we going to do? We're going to leave. And it's like, well, you won't leave. And it's an empty threat every single time, that even in places like France where taxes did go up, or wealth tax did happen, like nothing happened as a result. So like he offers no serious economic analysis at all, just posturing and conspiracy buzzwords.
I think he's scared. I think that's what it is. He's scared because a lot of rich people get scared when we talk about high taxes. Oh no, don't tax me more. Sorry. But I also think that it's more than that, right? Those that call for higher taxation or wealth taxes, we don't just stop there. We want wealth taxes, but we also want to get rid of corruption. And we mean corruption within the financial and economic elite. And I feel like Andrew Tate doesn't like someone like Gary Stevenson, who's popular, calling for wealth taxes, because he's then worried the next movement after will be finding people like Andrew Tate out, going after the ultra wealthy who are exploiting people. And I think he's scared. He's scared that this could undermine his position. And I fucking hope so, because he's a piece of shit. He doesn't sell anything to ordinary people. He sells bullshit scams and cons and bigotry and sexism, which doesn't help. Doesn't help you in your life. And I don't mean in terms of financially. Trust me, right? If you're a young lad, 15, 16, you've never even kissed a girl, and you listen to Andrew Tate, and you speak to girls and young women like the way Andrew Tate does, you will stay alone for a very, very long time. There's a reason why he can do that. It's because he's very, very rich. And of course, a lot of it is non-consensual as well, allegedly.
Yeah. No, I allegedly, absolutely, completely agree with you. I wish people would listen to your advice, Curtis. But it's true though.
I wish too.
No, but I do think that he is afraid. I think he's afraid of collectivism. Like, we know the likes of Tate are individualistic. They are and it's cynical individualism as well. They only want to serve their own interests. And the idea that people can actually band together and go, hey, you actually do earn shit tons of money and you're probably avoiding tax, maybe. So maybe you should pay a little bit more. Like, you should contribute a little bit more to society that you actually extract wealth from people's income. So, I mean, he knows that now people are becoming more aware of the fact that they want to stand up for class interests, workers and ordinary people versus the billionaire class. And I think that is a fair enough stance to take. It offers him no win if he tries to attack Gary Stevenson, who is Gary's economics is taking a huge stronghold. And mention him to anyone, most people go, 100%. I agree with what he's saying. So I'll say this absolutely directly, like, Tate's approach this whole thing is a dangerous distraction, I think, from what actually matters. And I think that's all Tate does. Tate pivots, distracts, and makes the focus all about him, when actually in the short term, yes, it might be empowering to young men to hear like, yeah, like go out there, get a gym membership and work harder, because it's all about hustling. But in the end, all it's going to do is going to leave them isolated. It's going to leave them angry. It's going to leave them resentful. And I don't think that that is what we need to be focused on. We need to focus on the fact that there are bigger things to tend to, bigger things to fix within the system, and structural issues that demand our immediate attention. I refuse to give Tate any more attention that he begs for, when we can absolutely debunk his misinformation, and I'll do that gladly. But I'll also focus on the fact that I do think a wealth tax is the way forward if we want a fair and functional and equitable society.
I really like your line about cynical use of individualism, because individualism, yeah, you could say it improves my material well-being because I'm just thinking about myself. But going through the Andrew Tate route, people signing up to his agenda and his Hustlers University, whatever it's called, doesn't even benefit you. And that's why you're right. It's a cynical use of individualism, because you won't get rich through Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate and all the other podcast bros and entrepreneurship crap, all it basically says is work harder, and if you're not successful, it's your fault. And the charge against Gary Stevenson was, well, you're actually very cynical because you're saying the economy is rigged, and that basically means you shouldn't go out and work hard, which is not what he's saying, by the way. But I think it's very powerful when Gary Stevenson went on that Diary of a CEO podcast and said, I had a person come up to me and they were crying because you're the first ever person that said it's not my fault. You know, I work multiple jobs. I've got to look after my family. I haven't got time to be an entrepreneur when I'm just trying to make ends meet. And I've got all these people telling me it's my fault. And all I need to do is be more selfish and be more sexist. It's utterly crap. Now, look, the reality of the situation is this. If you're born poor, chances are that's where you end up. If you have a rich daddy, well, I mean, no further explanation is needed. People like Tate and Leeds, they're thick. Okay, they have no material analysis of how wealth, how opportunities, or how even capitalism works. Stevenson is calling for higher taxes, not because he's jealous. I mean, he's a multi-millionaire, might add. He's doing it for a fundamental reason, and that's to save the economy and to save society. How does the ordinary person get the opportunity to succeed when the multi-millionaires and billionaires buy up everything? They're owning more and more and more. Obscene wealth means the rest of us get poorer. But that's not convenient for Tate and Leeds. They want to sell you the idea the only thing holding yourself back is yourself. They can sell you bullshit courses. It's a con. It's a scam. And they are playing people, particularly young men.
They are.
I feel like you've probably already gone over this, but I was going to ask you, what's your analysis of the root cause of this type of content? We know how harmful it is. We've broken down what it does. But where do you think it comes from? And why do you think it appeals to young men so much? And then obviously, finally, how do we convince people that Tate and these entrepreneurs are just not worth listening to?
Yeah, really good question. And the irony is that they are very much aware of why they feel the resentment that they feel. They just cannot, they just can't pinpoint where it's coming from. But what is happening, it's the structural issues that we're dealing with. It is years and years of austerity. It is the cost of living crisis. It is feeling as though you are grafting so hard and not reaping the benefits of how hard you're working. The fact of the matter is, many of these young people do work so hard. Many of these people are working in a society that seems to be working against them. And it's because what you were saying, we've got the wealthy hoarding wealth. We've got the wealthy being like, I don't want to contribute more. And it's causing a real issue here. We've got governments literally saying, yeah, we're going to get rid of, we want to make PIP harder to access. Like, all of these things cause people to harbor social resentment. And it's easy when you have the likes of Tate come in and say, look, anyone who supports taxes or feminism, yeah, you're a paid actor for the elites. And then people are going to be like, yeah, maybe he's right. Like, maybe all of these people are paid actors and we are just stuck in the matrix. It's easier to sell someone a conspiracy than to be like, can you not wake up and look at the reality of our situation, that the likes of Tate want to grift from someone who's working so hard and take money from you? The irony is rich because it's precisely the ultra elites, the Murdochs, the big banks who push anti-tax, who push anti-worker agenda and bankroll media to convince people that say wealth taxes are evil. So Gary Stevenson isn't backed by a billionaire, but he's managed to gain quite a few followers. Andrew Tate effectively is. He parrots billionaire ideology. So I think we have to help young people to see through that, see through the Matrix conspiracy, look at what the reality is, because the real divide is not man versus woman or lone wolves and paid actors versus, I don't know, the Matrix or whatever. It's actually the 99% of us who work hard probably like every single day versus the 1% who hoard the most wealth and power. So Tate's pseudo rebellion or his attempt to try and convince the masses is just a distraction that actually serves the status quo. So it's calling it out for what it is.
Yep.
Wake up.
Very well put. Very well put. It's the 99% versus the 1%. And yes, he's like a fake revolutionary to keep you within that system. You know, it's very enticing. It's like, in a way, to steal Marx's line, and I know he is in a very different context, but it's kind of like the opioid for the masses in a way that it's like people feel like they want change. And what's the best way of doing it? Is having like a fake revolutionary saying, no, this is the real revolution. And actually, oh, by the way, I just want to keep neoliberal capitalism, the thing we've been living under for the last 45 years. Very, very well put. That is why you are part of Turn Left, because
I'm the regular Friday. That's why I'm the regular Friday guest. No, I'm joking.
So you're a regular Friday guest, and it's because you're on Team Turn Left, because
Team
you're
Turn
excellent.
Left.
Now, before we move on, if you're enjoying the show, then please like the stream. We've got 160 viewers at the moment, which is excellent. So remember to like the show and hit the subscribe button. If you want to see us grow, then you can head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There is a link to our Patreon where you can support us monthly, or follow the other link to give us a one-time contribution. Alternatively, you can become a YouTube member for just 99p. Now, remember, all of us here at Turn Left are volunteers. We don't get paid at all, actually. All of the money that comes in so far goes into a pot, and that's how we pay for trains, how we pay for equipment. Your donation so far has helped so much already. There's so many things that we probably wouldn't be able to do without your support. We've upgraded our lighting equipment, streaming software. We've managed to do interviews, get ourselves down to London, do reports. All these sorts of things have been because of you. And one day we would like this to become our full-time jobs, where we're working here full-time and we can dedicate everything to Turn Left. So your contribution is very much welcome. If you can't afford it, though, don't feel obligated to give us money. There's so many other ways you can support us. Like I said, subscribe, share our content, like it, comment, speak to people in real life about us, and get the message out there that Turn Left is a media for socialism, and we are here to take on the oligarchs and the right-wing media. Let's go on to our final story of the evening. Earlier this week, the Reform Party went down to steelworks and announced that they would nationalise steel. Taking a photo opportunity, Tice and Farage posed with steel workers holding Unite campaign literature. Well, it seems that Reform has spooked Labour, as the government has recalled Parliament to vote on steel nationalisation. That's going to happen tomorrow morning. Now, in another video, Nigel Farage also said he would let Thames Water go bust.
You want to nationalise the steel industry, or the steelworks in particular. Would you nationalise water?
No, I would let the companies go bust. I cannot understand, if you've invested in Thames Water, you know, you're a bondholder in Thames Water. As far as I'm concerned, you deserve to lose every single penny. Let them go bust and start again. And quite why governments think they have to come in and bail out failing companies is completely and utterly beyond me.
It was worth mentioning that he said that they wouldn't nationalise water. He said, let them go bust and start again. And, you know, as I was saying to Zach Polanski earlier, it's not surprising, as this fits into the libertarian worldview. Many people on the right opposed the bailing out of the banks in 2008, and their view was that the banks should fail. I think it's important to know that this isn't a populist policy. It's a policy of free market fundamentalism. Bailing out the banks and putting them into public ownership, that's a good policy. But the scandal, the utter scandal, was handing back the banks to the private sector. You couldn't trust them. And then George Osborne decided to give bonuses for them. However, you know, ordinary people, as again, I repeat myself here because we filmed the Zach segment afterwards, but people are going to look at reform and go, they are doing a photo opportunity. They're there, right there with, steelworks. And, they are taking popular policy positions even, such as nationalisation. And they're trying to sound like a populist. I mean, Nigel Farage there was sounding very much like a populist. And Labour are continuing their best to be hated by the country. Now, when speaking to Zach Palansky earlier, I asked him about Reform's position on nationalising steel, and this is what he had to say. Nigel Farage and Reform, they've said they're going to nationalise steel, and they've taken PR opportunities. They've gone down there. They're wearing the equipment and the clothing and the uniform, and they're literally using Unite literature, okay? And they're basically parked their tanks on Labour's lawn. So I want to get, firstly, your reaction to what the hell the Labour Party doing, right? Reform are clearly trying to go for those traditional Labour voters, and Labour seems to be throwing it all away.
Nationalising steel is something we should have done a long time ago. And in fact, I was at Port Talbot last year, or 2 years ago, just before it closed down. And it was really clear, speaking to workers, that this was known that this was going to happen. So the real question is, if you're in government or you are preparing for government, why are you not talking to workers? Why are you not working with trade unions to ultimately make sure that there is a just transition? And all I mean by that is if you are changing industries or you're moving industries, you're making sure you're protecting people's jobs, their working rights and their conditions, and you're looking at what are the jobs of the future? How can we train people up? Now, none of that happens. So the question is, why are the Labour Party not doing that? We know why the Labour Party is not doing that. It's completely coherent when you open your eyes and see what's going on. They are being funded by multimillionaires and billionaires who want to privatise these industries, who work for multinational industries, or are in hock with unhinged presidents like Donald Trump. So it makes absolute sense that the Labour Party, whether each individual MP would say it like this, they certainly wouldn't say it, but they would think it, they want to actually undermine our industry. They want to undermine our industries. They even want to undermine the very institutions of democracy and government. This is how dangerous this moment is, because if you were trying to stir up conditions for the far right to breed, this would be exactly what you would do. And sure enough, Nigel Farage is here on the stage and taking centre stage. Now, this will, ultimately blow up in Nigel Farage's face. He doesn't mean any of the things he's saying. And I think ultimately he will be exposed for the charlatan he is. But thank you very much. Someone shouting they agree. But that is, didn't pay them. But that is not the conditions. We can't wait for that to happen because far too many people for too long are going to suffer in this moment.
Farage was also asked about nationalising Thames Water. And his response was he didn't say he was going to do it. I think he actually said no. He said, we're going to let them go bust, right? We'll let them fail, let them go bust, but not going to nationalise them. And to me, right, that to me sounds like the sort of free market libertarian worldview. The same sort of worldview, but back in 2008 when the banking crash happened. And some people on the right were saying, no, don't bail them out, let them fail, let the free market take over, essentially. To me, the right thing to do was nationalise them. The big scandal was giving them back to the private sector. So what do you make of Nigel Farage's response? And then does that also make you skeptical? In fact, actually, do you think they're lying or they're not being truthful about their position on nationalisation of steel and other industries?
Nigel Farage opened his mouth. Of course he's lying. There's nothing more essential than water. This is like one of the most typical examples of something where you cannot have competition. It is a monopoly. The idea that we are one of the few countries that has privatized that shows how absurd decades of Thatcherism is, both through Thatcher, obviously, through Blair, through Starmer, through all the people we've had in between, Johnson. They have all carried on this same ideology. They've been wearing different ties, but all of it has been about how can we erode the state, how can we erode our public institutions, and instead, how can we funnel money from public money to private wealth and private capital? And so when Nigel Farage says that he wants them to go bust, let's be very clear, this is not some kind of newfound communism from Comrade Farage. This is about him ultimately making sure that the political project he is absolutely at the forefront of, but Starmer is part of the same project, it's just dressed in different costumes, which is ultimately to make the rich richer, the poor poorer, whilst at the same time pumping water and sewage into our rivers and seas and asking us to pay more for that privilege as bills go up. This is absolutely brazen by Reform.
Farage and Tice went down and they took pictures. I said they were doing sort of the PR stuff. And it just makes you think, I don't particularly believe them, but they're using union literature. They've got Unite literature in their hands. And then we see the Green Party, and from what I seen, I saw a statement on the website. Now, of course, the Green Party has called for nationalisation way before reform. I don't think that matters to ordinary people. Ordinary voters who might not know, they're seeing reform taking the front foot. So I want to ask you, why aren't the Greens taking the front foot? Because a lot of people might go, oh, well, the Greens are saying they're going to nationalise steel, but they're just saying that because Reform are doing it. It seems that Reform are trying to set the narrative. People are going to see Nigel Farage dressed up in uniform at steelworks, and that's all they kind of care about. So what are we going to see more from the Greens? We want to see them on the front foot. What's your response to that?
Okay, let me make an excuse, and then I'll tell you what I'm going to do about it. The excuse that it's legitimate, despite the fact I'm calling it an excuse, it's really legitimate, is Reform are bankrolled by multimillionaires and billionaires. So for them to be responding the entire time, to have social media that's being pumped out all the time, to be on legacy media all the time, is very easy for them. They're playing politics in the easiest possible mode. We saw Jonathan Ashworth on TV yesterday. Actually, that was helpful to the Green Party, saying, vote Green, you get rid of Jonathan Ashworth. That was the best possible advertisement he could ever have given us. I feel like I should be paying Ashworth for that. But ultimately, we are very, very scarcely resourced. A lot of our resources is going into being good constituency MPs in Parliament and building the party. However, the excuse is not good enough. That is the situation we're in, but we've got to do something about it, as legitimate as it is. So here's the three things we're going to do about it. One, grow the party, join the Green Party. Every person who joins builds more of a mass movement. The more members we have, the more legacy media cannot ignore us anymore, and we can keep knocking on that door. Now, I say that, I'm not entirely convinced. I think we could be an absolutely huge party, even huger, that would still try to ignore us. So two, we've got to raise money. We're not going to take money from dirty money. We will continue to be ethical. I don't think it's right that in order to get attention, you take money from the kind of people that we're attacking or challenging. So it's got to be the right kind of money. But I think there's legitimate questions about how do we do that. But more than anything, I think there's groups like Greens Organised Women Party and other groups who are starting to create their own media. I'm increasingly of the opinion that as we move on, national media or social media from national parties or politicians is going to become less and less important. And the material I really want to see is from communities. People like Mothin Ali in Gipton and Hare Hills, who famously stood against the far right in the riots that were happening. He was on the front line of that. People like Hannah Spencer in Manchester. She's a working class plumber that used to fit gas boilers, is now fitting heat pumps. People in London like Rory, who elected last night. I want to see social media from him. I want to see lots of people in their communities all across the country taking the initiative to start putting social media out there. Now, as a party, we need to be training people up. We need to be making sure they're comfortable doing that. But I think that's where it's going to really come, is that grassroots media knocking on doors, media in the community, and less of the old traditional media that we saw. And then finally, people like Turn Left as well. I think increasingly their viewership, obviously that's not my job, that's your job, but I think seeing independent media is going to become increasingly important as people recognize how often they're being lied to, or if I'm being generous, spun a very status quo story from legacy media that doesn't contain the full facts or context. And I think people are crying out for new media, new politics, and that's the Green Party's mission.
Sarah, at the end there, I asked Zach about the lack of aggressiveness from the Greens. Are you convinced by his answer?
I am to a certain degree. Like Zach is one of the, a Green voice that I absolutely trust. Like I think could hold his own in a pub argument. I don't endorse pub arguments and a policy briefing. Like he is, I think, so versatile and so well versed and comprehensive in all of his answers, which is exactly the energy the party needs. And he gets it. But let's be honest, I think I do. I want the Greens to kind of catch up to that sort of momentum as well. Because right now we've got Farage literally doing up photo ops that look like he could be, the star of a movie. A man who actually once called privatization a really, really great success, and is actually out here doing his best Tony Benn impression. And the Greens are kind of replying with a press release. And I think if Reform's nationalism is cosplay socialism, because that's what it is, then the Greens party's response is like ASMR, I don't know, eco-leftism, accurate and well-meaning and really, really in the right place. But it's just inaudible when it comes to any sort of like political discourse. And I want them to be loud. I want them to be out there. The Greens have amazing ideas. The Greens are on our side as working people. They have amazing policies, full public ownership, climate justice, workers' rights. But you wouldn't know it unless you were already on their mailing list. So what I would want
point.
from the Greens, I want them to be a serious political force. They are a serious political force, but I want them to be taken as one. So they need to stop acting like they want to just save a tree and actually just be super, super loud about it. I want aggression because I feel like on the left, we are sometimes a little bit too soft with it. Like we just need to be really loud and proud about it, because otherwise the Farages of the world are very happy to kind of take up that space, even if it's just a stunt. And that's exactly what it is every single time. A political stunt, political theatre every single time.
I agree with everything you said, and that is one of the best analysis I think I've ever heard of the Green Party. Honestly, it's spot on, no notes. And you're right. Look, so the Green Party, they've long called for water and still to be nationalised, whereas Reform, I think they previously said about water nationalisation. I don't know. They've not been that clear on it, but they can just sort of announce it because they're not just saying it on a page in their website. They're going and making a photo op. The Greens have long called for good public policy, but again, like, where are they?
Yeah.
You've got Reform doing all the aesthetics, and the most we got from the Greens was a statement. But I do want to be fair to Zach, right? I think Zach is on it. I think he has good instincts. I think he knows how to campaign. I like the rest of the party to be more like him.
Same.
As much as I respect the other Green politicians, I really like Carla Denyer, by the way.
Me too.
I do think Zach would be far more effective as leader. I think the Greens would be in a better place. I think they should have a sole leader as well. I know there's a leadership campaign or leadership election coming up. No idea what's going on with that. We don't have any inside information, I'm afraid. I would like to see Zach be there.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about Reform, right? Big question. I know it's a big question. But looking at what Reform are doing, going after disillusioned Labour voters. Remember, when they were first gaining traction, they were going just for Tory voters. That was who they were peeling off. And now look what they're doing. They're basically parking their tanks on Labour's lawn. Do you think they're on course to win the next election?
No. I maybe if I'm wrong, clip it and be like, Sarah, you're a mug. But I don't think they'll win the election. But the longer answer, that's the short answer. The longer answer is far more dangerous, because I don't think they need to win to kind of wreck the place. And I mean, the facts are there. Reform got over 14% of the national vote in the last general election, and that's more than the Lib Dems. That's basically, I think with the maths, like 1 in 7 people back in a party whose main ideology is grievance plus nostalgia. And that's kind of scary. So no, I don't think Reform are on course to kind of take over number 10, but they are absolutely on course to kind of crack open the electoral map. And that, for me, I think would be quite scary, especially in the North and in the Midlands, because what they're doing is they're walking into post-industrial towns that have been completely obliterated because of deindustrialisation, throwing it back to Thatcher, and still seeing Thatcher's policies form the fabrics of our society today, waving a British steel flag and going, hey, look, Labour's not going to fight for you. The Tories sold you off, but we're going to save your jobs. And of course, people are going to listen to that and be like, well, yeah, we have been shafted by deindustrialisation, gentrification and privatisation. And that sounds like hope to us. So we'll probably go for you. Even though their real economic plan is to kind of tax cuts for the rich. But it's enough to kind of make them go, yeah, I'm down for that. And it's just post-policy populism. They don't care if the maths works. They care if they just, excuse me, anger lands, and that's pretty much all they're kind of looking out for. So it's red meat without nutritional value, to be honest.
Red meat without nutritional value. What a line! I've never heard that before.
Thank
I like
you.
it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, let's bring in our producer, and we're going to go to your comments. It's been a very pretty good chat tonight. Busy, dare I say, fiery as well. Lewis is joining us now. Hello, Lewis.
Hello. The chat's been very fun and active. Lots of discussions going on today in the chat, but we've also had some lovely super chats from people. So firstly, we have Rachel Atwood.
Thank you, Rachel. It's always good to see you in there.
Thank you so much. So would you have Sandy Lovers on TL for the Canadian elections? I looked into her, so it's something that we can definitely look at. So we'll keep a note of it, because we definitely want more guests on the show, because I don't feel like the world has ever looked at Canadian elections so much than they have now, because of everything with Trump and Mark Carney and just everything that's going on. It's a really interesting election. And of course, we support and stand with Canada. Specs. This should be a day job. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Specs.
so much.
Specs,
And
we see
you are
you
right.
every
I
time.
agree with you. This should be our full-time jobs.
And player one, £5. Thank you so much, player one.
There's a reason why you're player number one. Thank you. I
he
really
put-
appreciate that.
It's not the way I've got the comments filtered, but he put another comment after this, which was just like, take the money or something like that.
Yeah, I saw that. That's quite funny. We will. Thank you.
And then Vimster just became a member.
Oh,
Thank you so much,
Thank you for
Vimster.
joining Turn Left, Insta.
Okay, on to comments. Let's see what we got. So, going from the top, the Kisler, deciding between Reform and the Greens doesn't make sense. They're very ideologically different. It clearly shows a lack of political education in the electorate. I think my only comment on that would be people are generally just sometimes driven not by ideology, just anti-establishment. Like they just don't want to vote for one of the big parties. And we've met a few people like this who are just like, might vote Green, might vote Reform. Then they keep going back and forth, right?
I've had discussions with friends and family who've had the same thing. They've literally said it's going to be Green or Reform. And you think, I understand it, right? The knee-jerk reaction is how, because you've got the Greens on the party of the left, Reform on the party of the right. They don't have really anything in common, but they do, which is that they pitch themselves against the establishment. Now, in reality, Reform are not anti-establishment. And also, right, people don't think in terms of left and right. That's how we speak, right? People don't talk like that. They'll just think, look, I'm sick of the Tories, I'm sick of the Labour Party, we need something different. So I get it. Maybe it's a lack of political education. I don't know. You could say that about anything, really. I suppose I'm not that interested about whether people are politically educated or not, because at the end of the day, the majority of people are not going to be political nerds like us. And we need to break through to people rather than say, why don't people know this and that? Because you're stuck forever.
Yeah, and I do find it interesting as well, because Reform obviously gained quite a number of, they're relatively popular, and it's seeming that they're getting increasingly popular. But people notice, I think, socialist ideals, but can't pinpoint that it's socialism. Like Reform have the aesthetics of socialism with the national flags, the public ownership, and the worker dignity, but they're wrapping it up in some sort of like right authoritarianism. And we can discern that, but there's no actual ethics behind what the Reform Party are doing. And we have seen, if people actually really, really look into them, that they do backtrack. So I don't know if that is a party that people can trust, but I think what we can do on the left is really, really just, I think, garner that into some sort of resistance and be like, let's speak about it, let's be loud about it, the same way that they're being loud about it, because they're able to kind of tap into people's resentment. And I think we need to turn that into some sort of resistance. Like there has to be some sort of like way forward to kind of capitalize on that, because they've capitalized very, very well on people's resentment. So yeah, I don't know.
And then there's also some of the policies that, again, I don't believe Reform, but
no,
talking about, attacking Labour and scrapping the winter fuel payments, attacking them on scrapping the two-child benefit cap, keeping the two-child benefit cap, talking about nationalisation. And even though, when you look at their manifesto, you look into their history, again, these are Thatcherites, they don't believe in a state. They actually want, in their manifesto, they said they wanted to cut 5% of every single department's budget, which is austerity on steroids. That would essentially collapse the country. Do I think these same people are then going to put steel into public ownership, are going to keep benefits the same levels, or maybe even increase them? No, I don't. I don't believe that. And there's only one political party that pledged to tax and spend and increase investment, and that was the Green Party.
Yeah. Yeah, completely.
Speaking of which, Edward Sexy. Zach needs to be the sole Green leader. I'll just put that out there.
Yeah, you've heard my view. I want to hear both of your views on that.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like Zach represents, I don't know, when I resonate with him personally. This is obviously my own view. I love the Green Party. I love the people that stand in the Green Party. I align with them so heavily. But I Zach, I think, captivates me. So, and I think that that's something that is needed for the Green Party. And I said that earlier. I think that that's what the Green Party needs. I think a bit more, aggression.
Yeah, I feel like both Carla and Zach are definitely the best communicators. Zach definitely doesn't have the higher profile yet, but that's just because he's not an elected MP. He's obviously on the London Assembly. But I think he would obviously be a great voice if he had the opportunity to, and I think it'd be appealing to a lot of people. I think the main difference as well, I think Zach is more of a natural communicator. Carla is very appealing, and I feel like she's been good on stage at debates in those formal situations. But I still do feel like Carla needs to come down to earth a little bit. I still feel like she's a little bit, very like middle classy. I think she's very put together, but at the same time, I almost feel like Zach's ready to get down and dirty, which sounds weird, but I just don't think Carla is not quite there yet. I feel like she needs to, get her hands dirty a bit and be a bit more like
I mean,
aggressive and stuff.
I think we spoke about this though. I was like, but is that not an instinct thing? Like, can you train more authenticity into someone? I'm not saying that Carla's inauthentic. What I mean is, like, she comes across as, like I said, put together. She's very thoughtful in her answers, so much so that almost maybe a bit scripted. And we're in the era of populism where people would rather hear you say something a bit more out there than to be put together. I mean, like Zach then in those clips, he was saying right off the bat, he was saying whenever Farage opens his mouth, he's lying. He's going on the personal attack as well, which I like because he should do. I don't know if you're going to get that really from the Greens. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I hope that we do, because that, I think, as much as because we know that they have, like we said this earlier, we know that they have great ideas. We know that they are on side. We know what they would enact if things went really well for them. Like I have full trust in them. It's just whether they can get that out there, and I think sometimes it does take doing that. Politics is a dirty game, and you do have to be quite loud about the things that you do. Show the assertion.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely a dirty game, yeah.
From one of our lovely and biggest supporters, Zeke, I appreciate Zach for taking the time to talk to Turn Left, which I think is actually a really good point, because it's not just about Zach, because as you guys know, I'm obsessed with American politics, and the one thing that like Trump did really successfully was actually go after and work with a lot more niche people online. It wasn't just the Joe Rogan experience or any of these types of things. Like they went on like other sites than, I can't remember the names, like Twitch-like sites, and like went on gaming channels and joined streams and all these types of different things. I just don't feel like a lot of people are necessarily willing to do that. I saw Labour yesterday post a video with like Phil from TikTok, if anybody follows British Phil, and I thought like, okay, that's like good strategy. But at the same time, like people need to be getting like way more online and finding all these different channels to communicate to people with, and Zach's done that today.
I mean, he's been doing this before Trump was doing it, though. Like Trump was doing it because it was kind of for the election. We at Turn F have always had a pretty good relationship with Zach and the Green Party. I mean, Zach first came on quite a few years ago, and he always says, like, any opportunity. Like I literally messaged him today and said, I'm really sorry this is last minute. We're covering the story. We need to get your response. And he's always like, I will come on your show or other people's shows as much as I can, because he understands that legacy media is, I mean, I think legacy media in its form is dead. Do I think that legacy media in its totality is dead? No, because I actually think a lot of legacy media has come over to social media. It's not like it's disappeared. But he understands that basically in order to build a movement, it has to include independent media. And he's been very strong on that. So I think he understands that very much. So Zach will always try, if he can, take time to talk to us.
I've just got another notification right now on my phone, which proves exactly what we're talking about. I've just got a notification showing Nigel Farage working with a TikToker. I don't know if anybody's seen this, but there's a guy online who goes around the country and fills in potholes with flowers, and he goes viral all the time because it gets the potholes fixed. And Nigel Farage has just done a collaboration with him, and that's going to make him look really good. It's a smart move. I'm literally watching a video on my phone right now of Nigel Farage filling in a pothole of flowers. That is a great move. That's a great strategy. I hate Nigel Farage, but this is what people need to be doing more.
I mean, you can imagine Keir Starmer doing that, though, because even if he wanted to, like, this guy's so... Like, it speaks to Farage's character, right? Like, Keir Starmer couldn't go like, right, I'm going to do this now. And they're like, oh, a pothole. We will set up a commission and review to get all the potholes done. And they're like, who the fuck are you? I mean, Farage's got that charisma. So I don't think the Labour Party or Starmer is even capable of doing that. We've lost Sarah.
Oh.
I think it was my Keir Starmer impression. It put her off so much. You're back. You're
I'm
back.
back.
Sorry, did my impression
Sorry.
put you off?
No, I to be fair, I did feel a little bit triggered just seeing Star
Yeah,
on my
fair enough, I
screen. So
understand.
no.
Don't worry. All the viewers heard it too. You're not the only one.
No, it's true though. I mean, but it's irritating to me to see Farage really capitalize on the things that need to be capitalized on, because this is exactly what the left needs. The left needs to be doing this sort of stuff. Like, how is Farage literally cosplaying a working class hero and people are literally laughing it up like it's nobody's business? It's ridiculous. Like, come on.
There was that moment when Rishi during the election tried to do that like TikTok trend where you put your hand to the camera and it's like a transition. But he just transitioned to the exact same scene, so he basically just like slapped the camera.
He's supposed to put your hand and cut something else, but you went like that, and it's like, what are you doing?
Oh, it's so bad. Anyway, okay, Claire. It would be good to see the rest of the Labour members from the Corbyn era join the Greens. That would provide the necessary funds. Greens organised seem to be helping with comms on social media. Yeah, I've been following the Greens Organised really closely. Make sure you go and follow them on social media. It's a really good account. But yeah, there are a lot of people who are still left from the era of Corbyn, even though many of them have been cleansed out of the party. But it's also a case of, I think Greens probably maybe hesitate as well, because there are a lot of the older kind of middle classy, they've got a annual pass to, what's the thing called that everyone has an annual pass to? That's an old person. Where you go to all the historical houses. What's it called? What's it called? Like Nature England.
Lewis, aren't you closer to that than we are?
I mean, aren't they? They're all. They definitely go to the Chelsea Flower Show every year.
Oh no, I know what you're talking about. It's called a
like national heritage thing. What's it called?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
there's like 7 million members in the country. I'm literally waiting for a comment to come through.
It's really
right
popular,
now.
but then they got accused of being awoke by like GB News. There,
English Heritage or National Trust.
National Trust. That's it. National Trust. Thank you. Yeah, so I feel like those type of National Trust middle class Greenie voters probably wouldn't like the Corbyn era people. There is a bit of a clash there, so it is a case of finding the right people.
But they need to be an eco-socialist party, and the thing is though, they are a democratic party. They should join, and that's what politics is about. Hash it out, right? If you've got the sort of middle-class older guard in the Greens versus young socialists, fight it out within the arena in an actual democratic political party. But I think there's also hesitation from Corbyn supporters going to the Greens because they're like, the Greens aren't the Socialist Party. True, but then the Labour Party isn't the Socialist Party. You can argue that it never was a Socialist Party. I mean, reading, I think it might have been Ralph Miliband. He wrote a book and he said, a party with socialists in it. And he basically said, the Labour Party isn't a socialist party. It's a party that happens to have socialists in it. So there's a debate of whether that's true. Yeah, that didn't stop Jeremy Corbyn's rise. That didn't stop all of us joining the Labour Party and voting for them. So I think I agree, the Greens are not a socialist party, but there's an eco-socialist wing within it, and it's democratic. To me, it's like, get involved, or yeah. I mean, I'm not a member of the party, so I don't think I should really be saying that. But
well, I found this really interesting comment from this really smart guy called Lewis.
I heard he's a troll.
No, I've heard he's a troll. Yeah, should we get rid of him? Mods, can we get rid of this Lewis Harron, please?
So the biggest
I love that you just wrote that as well, didn't you?
No, I wrote that like an hour ago when you guys were talking about polling. Okay. So the biggest flaw in polls is that they don't show you the don't knows, and it's usually like 40 to 50%. And this is every single poll that comes out. If you go onto the poll, then click onto the company, then click onto the data and download the data, it's very annoying. But literally the one that came out yesterday, which put Reform at like 28%, more than half of them were just don't know. Yeah. It does not account for those people because it just doesn't look like a good headline. It doesn't look clickable or watchable. So they purposely, obviously, put out the don't knows. So whenever you see these polls, just remember almost 50% of the people who took part in it don't know where their vote's going to go. So it's not a case of any party is behind or ahead in any way, because it just never accounts for those things. Just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah. And also what was saying, it's like, because I look at the polls, like, fucking hell, the Greens on 7%. Come on. And he did say, once again, not to keep on sort of repeat myself, but yeah, the Greens have fared very, very well in seats they obviously didn't win. Like I said, like coming second in 40 seats, that doesn't show up in polling. So this polling so far out of an election might look fantastic for the Reform Party. But as we know, we shouldn't trust polls too much.
No, exactly, because come election day, and this goes to Lewis's comment. Come election day, what will you hear people saying? I thought Farage was a leader, he's not, or I couldn't be asked to vote, didn't know who to vote for, etc., etc. Like these things do happen, or I didn't vote because I don't trust anyone, or all of this sort of stuff. So it doesn't mean that if you're yelling about votes and wokeism that it will actually translate into votes.
Most people don't give a fuck about wokeism, do they? It's such a one American thing, I think, and also an online thing. People, I don't think people vote in Reform because of wokeism. I also think that the main motivator isn't immigration. It's probably number two. I think
vibes.
I think it's the economy and being pissed off at the establishment. Now, that doesn't mean that Reform have good economic policies, but I'll tell you one good policy they have, which is I want to see the Green Party adopt, is changing of the tax thresholds. So if you earn £20,000, you're out of the tax bracket. The first 20 grand is tax-free, right? I know family members who literally went, I don't know who I'm voting for, quite like the Greens, and their one reason why they voted, they read the manifestos, you can't say they didn't read it, they went for the manifestos, and they went, Reform are increasing the tax threshold. So if you're on £20,000, you don't get taxed. I'm voting for them. That's a retail policy, a retail offer that it was so clear, and they voted for them. I don't think this person, actually, I'm certain this person didn't vote for Reform on wokeism or immigration. And the thing is, there's so many people like that. And the problem is when the left say, we need to defeat Reform, we need to defeat division, hate, and anti-immigration. True, but also don't kind of plaster the entirety of Reform support on that, because then you get people going, whatever, you're painting me in this box as an anti-immigrant person, whereas I actually don't care about the levels of immigration. I voted Reform for this. So I do kind of wince when people say, yeah, we need to fight division, we need to fight the divisive politics of Nigel Farage. You don't do that. I think you should be fight Farage because he's fake establishment. He's a fake populist. He's an ex-Tory city banker, and all the Reform lot are the same. They're all very, very rich people, and Reform are the party of the rich. They're the same as the Tories and the Labour Party, just more of the extreme. I think that's more effective because it's true, right? Now, of course, yes, they are more right-wing on immigration, but I don't think there's a lot of voters supporting Reform not because of that. And Reform know that too, by the way. I mean, there was I don't know if it's a leak or whatever, or something, some sort of communication came out that they're not going to be fighting the next election that much on immigration. Now, you would think, why wouldn't they? Well, they're doing stuff like going down to steelworks. And that is, again, going after, the epitome of what a Labour vote wants.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true. Walk into post-industrial towns and wave a flag, and people will be like, "Oh yeah, they want to save our jobs." This is the thing. People just want to know that they're safe. People just want to know that their livelihoods are going to be intact. They don't want it to be infringed upon by anything or anyone. Because what people will be motivated by is the social resentment that they're harboring already. So if you can really redirect them in a direction where you're like, yeah, the resentment you're feeling is as a result of these factors, these structural issues, these systemic things that haven't been dealt with, these government failures, then you will have people on side. People just want to know that their wages won't stagnate. They want to make sure that their jobs are still intact, and they want to make sure that they're protected by the country that they work hard in. Simple as that. So I think Reform are kind of doing that at the moment. I feel like I'm bigging up Reform. I'm not because I think they're fake.
You just understand
but that's what's going on. Yeah.
So Keith Prince says, been away, back now. TL, welcome back, Keith. I hope you're okay. He followed up with a question, not a question, a statement. No, they don't all leave. If you tax the wealthy, you can't just pack up your factory. Yeah, absolutely true. Obviously, there are certain people can take their cash away that they have, but when it comes to lots of assets, they're essentially forced to sell them within the country. We do sometimes have issues. Is it a glass plant right now somewhere in Yorkshire or something? They just can't find a buyer for it, essentially, which obviously is a problem. But it's not the case that we can't find a buyer, so therefore we should just lower taxes for people so they can stay here. It's a case of, if we had a better economy, we would have people being able to buy these things and being able to keep them. If we haven't essentially been, drained of resources by, lots of like foreign investors and lots of rich people who've just absolutely drained this country of everything.
Yeah, and that's a good point. No, you go first because I feel like I've spoken enough.
No, I think it's a really good point. I was trying to get rid of a bug, but from like a little midgie. But no, I completely agree with you. And this is a really good comment because it's like if you really want to see change happen, people are not like tax the wealthy, obviously, but then also know that the wealthy, the richest in this country, won't just up and leave the country. They will continue to contribute. Exactly, it's an empty threat, but also they love the country that they live in. Like, let's just put that out there. They love the benefits that they reap from this country. There's no way it's going to pack up and leave. So I think people need to see it for what it is. If a wealth tax comes into motion, they basically have no choice but to really just pay that, and they won't be disenfranchised if and when they do. So I don't know, I think that people are always scared of the unknown, but I think that the rich know what would happen, and not a lot would happen to their pockets if they did get taxed.
I think that a lot of rich people hate this country, actually, and I think
do you think
I think Andrew Tate put it himself. He says, you put the taxes, I'm going to find a way of moving it out, we're going to restructure. They don't give a fuck then, do they? Because they want to. But the great thing is, it's a bluff. Like, yes, if there's individual multimillionaires leaving, so fucking what? That doesn't matter. What? But we're talking about taxes on wealth, assets. Motherfucker, we are taxing you whether you like it or not. And if you don't want to, sell up. That's fine. The assets still stay in this country.
Exactly. But they won't leave. It's like you said, it's an empty threat. They just won't leave.
Well, look, if you're a corporation, massive business, right, and you've got businesses in Norway, the US, globally, right, in Europe, in China, in the US, and the UK, right, and it turns out that one of those countries wants to tax you more, and you go, okay, I'm going to up and leave. What happens? You lose out because you're still losing all of those profits on those companies you move out. Now, of course, there are certain ways you can get around certain taxation, which is why there's also other policy areas such as land value tax, exit tax. There's many other things you can do. But largely, no, capital flight is... Look, capital flight probably comes more down to certainty than taxation, I think, when it comes to individuals investing. Lewis, you were talking about this yesterday, weren't you? About how... there's mass sellings of bonds. The yield is up because people find the US incredibly uncertain. Why? It's because Donald Trump every 5 minutes changes his idea on what economic policy he's going to implement.
Yeah, it's just a mess and it's all over the place. There could be even some like good repercussions from this, even with some short-term economic stress, because essentially people are just not going to have any confidence in the US, and it could actually help us. But then at the same time, China might now flood Europe with lots of cheap products, which might also affect our own economy. There's so many weird things going on right now.
I could see a situation where the EU and China get closer, and I think that would be smart.
They're already talking about it. It was in the news on Politico today.
Yeah,
they might be getting closer ties.
Surprised.
What, a special relationship?
Another special relationship.
Well, BRICS and the EU come together. Who knows? You never know, right? You never know. Sorry,
I was literally trying to pull up the EU. I was literally trying to pull up the EU article there. Oh yeah, so this is the petty bourgeoisie feeling threatened in action. They can't imagine the workers they've deluded gaining class consciousness and not buying their shitty courses.
This was what... Sorry, Lewis.
No, I don't have anything to say. Go ahead.
Sorry, this is exactly what we were saying, Curtis. The thing that Tate and the likes of Tate fear the most is that people actually come together, this sense of collectivism. Like, and they hate that idea that people actually wake up and be like, I don't need your shitty, grifty pyramid scheme. Like, I don't need to invest in that. What I can invest in is actually a class consciousness, like being able to realize that what's dividing us is the billionaire class and us working hard already as is. So yeah, I think once people realize that individualism is what's driving the likes of Tate and that collectivism is what's going to actually liberate us, then yeah.
Well, I mean, I think Knopfler's right here, because I think he's referring to Tate and Leeds as the petty bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
I agree. I think they are the petty bourgeoisie, because they're extremely rich people. They're influential, but they're not captains of industry. They're not the Jeff Bezos of the world. They are definitely petty bourgeoisie, but of course, like, they are going to side with the bourgeoisie because they do materially benefit from this current economic system. I think, a lot of these people in the petty bourgeoisie could have their souls fixed if they decided to stand with the working class. I think their souls would heal. Look, there's no hope for the 1%ers. Fuck them. But for those of the petite bourgeoisie, look, I mean, Marx himself says basically when the revolution comes, the petty bourgeoisie is going to have to really stand with the working class and the middle class. They're going to have to. So, although there is absolutely no redemption for people like Andrew Tate, of course, nor that he deserves it.
So Simon says, even if they let them go bust, they've had 76 billion in dividends since privatization and have sold off assets and polluted the majority of the rivers and coastline. They should be in prison. Yeah, absolutely. I can't remember their name. I think they're called like Citizens Arrest or something like that. But there's this new organization that I've been seeing around everywhere on different social media, and they're going around trying to do like citizens arrests on like CEOs of industries who are like. Yeah, like polluting the world. It's so funny to watch it because they literally like track down actual CEOs and be like, "You're under citizen's arrest." And it's kind of like technically there is like a weird thing in the law where they're allowed to do this, but then the police turn up and never actually arrest them. It's just about getting attention. So it's really cool. I'll see if I can get their name. But the one thing I'd love to know as well in terms of the value that Simon's just given, because I've seen different figures out here and there, like water dividends for water companies is somewhere in the region of 50 billion since privatization. I'd love to know the final figure of all profit and all privatization dividends since everything got privatized in total. It'll be interesting to see.
Would that be accessible? Would that be accessible?
That sounds like that's going to have to be, because it's a collation of different companies since, 70s. That's going to be like a major study, which someone should do.
Someone should do it. Like, I think they've been done individually at different levels, but it would be really good for somebody also to calculate as well, because, a person who's in charge of a nationalized company is not going to earn as much as a private CEO. So just somebody to work out exactly how much we have collectively lost to these private companies.
Is that you volunteering then, Lewis?
Absolutely not. That sounds like the most boring job ever. Sorry. I'll let Simon do it.
Let's plug. Support us to the left, and we can pay Lewis to do some long-hour research on dividends and profits to privatized companies since the 70s.
I would read it.
I would read it. It'd probably take me like a few days to read it. But yeah.
I'm going to show these two comments back to back because it's basically kind of screaming the same thing. So Specs put Greens need to be louder, and then Vimpster put Greens need to step it up and push it hard and stop being so polite. And they've had that feedback from before, right?
Yeah.
When I interviewed Carla, I reminded her of the clip that Owen Jones kind of went a bit viral for, where he was saying they just need to get dirtier. They need to stop being so polite. And he wrote an entire article about this as well.
Yeah.
Well, the good thing is they're aware of it. And obviously, you spoke to Carla. I think there's been internal discussions. We just got to wait and see
what's
what's going to happen.
Game.
If something happens, I don't know.
Yeah. Because we're all in agreement there.
Yeah.
More
definitely.
aggression.
But I feel like because Carla's kind of like so sensible, when I said to her like, oh, do you agree? You have to get like a little bit dirty and get your hands dirty. She was like, yeah, but we're not going to go after minorities. She said something along those lines. And I was like, obviously,
insinuating that, are you?
we would never...
Right, we hate immigrants now. Whoa, hold on.
No, but like the Greens really shifted.
They shifted very politically.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Imagine that.
They turn into eco-fascists.
Yeah, eco-socialism, more like eco-fascist. Thank you.
Isn't that the story behind the? Actually, I don't want to spoil it for anyone. No, I'm not going to spoil it. Just in case nobody's watched it yet.
Can you really say what show it is or film?
No, because I'll spoil it if I name the show. Like I can't. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna have to leave you hanging.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, send me a DM on TikTok if you want to know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
But yeah, that's the end of the comments.
There was one comment in here, probably gone now, and they did say, I don't know who said it. They said, "Have you seen Curtis and Keir Starmer in the same room?" So that was very offensive.
It just happened.
I think that's many times I've had that comment. Many times.
Many.
He always repeats his words.
It always
like, many
do
more.
that. And it doesn't make it more effective. It's like when Tate was shouting. I mean, I'm not saying that Sarah and Tate are the same, but like, you don't have to repeat it. I got it the first time.
Oh, the thing that stuck on my mind is I think it was 2021, after like the first by-election with Keir Starmer's leading, they did pretty badly, and he was asked a question, and oh my god, it was 5 minutes of him giving the same answer but repackaged. We are going to do change, and change is the promise that we're going to change because people want change, and change is what we need. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, someone hit the reset button on him. I'm like, oh my god, he's got worse. Apparently he's had lessons about public speaking. He's fucking got worse. So yeah, apparently I'm, me and Keir Starmer are actually the same person. It's true. You've never actually seen me and Keir Starmer in the same room. Fact. Same as Sarah though, same as Lewis. So maybe you're all fucking Starmer as well.
What's really funny as well is that when me and Callum first started talking to each other on TikTok, when we were doing like panels and discussions and debates, we never used to come on camera, and people used to think that we were the same person. So I'd come on. I don't think
Really?
I don't even think we sound similar in any way. Like, I know we're both Northern, but I don't feel like we sound similar at all. But multiple people used to go, "You sound like Callum. Is that Callum?" And I'm like, "No,
No, you guys sound so
different.
different.
I don't think you both sound.
Yeah, I don't get it. This happened so many times.
Maybe it's because you're both Northerners.
It probably
Yeah.
is.
Maybe it's that.
Probably.
Yeah, and you guys are posh Southerners with
Yeah,
posh
exactly.
accents. right?
We're middle class because we're Southern.
Yeah, we get that all the time though, but I'm not even going to get into it.
Yeah, let's not.
I was actually going to start getting into it, and I was like, you know what? Nah, it's not worth
Well,
it.
the time is 9 o'clock. It's been a bloody good show, isn't it?
Yes.
Been
but
lovely.
I think that is all we have time for. I do want to thank all of our viewers who tuned in. And of course, I want to thank Sarah. Sarah, of course, every Fridays. We love our Fridays, don't
Love
we?
Fridays. It's a nice way to end the week, always. Yay.
Now, remember to like this stream if you're not a subscriber. Then hit that button. Make sure you hit the notification bell, because so many times people subscribe, they don't know we're going live, or there's a new video out, so please do that. Remember, we are a group of volunteers. We're giving up our time to try and create an alternative media, but we want this to be our full-time jobs. So if you want us to grow, then you can head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There is a link to our Patreon where you can support us monthly, or follow the other link to give us a one-time contribution. Alternatively, you could become a YouTube member for just 99p. One day, we are going to be on the map. We're going to be a part of the official left, if you want to call it that. We're going to be full-time, and we're going to build a proper socialist media organisation, because we need to take on the powerful. We need to take on the oligarchs, the tech bros, and the right-wing media. It's not good enough being, milquetoast. Just a little bit left. I'm sorry, but this is the age of populism. This is the age of radical politics. I don't think we can take on techno-feudalism, the oligarchy, with being timid. The time for is radical politics, a media for socialism, and if you guys can help us grow in any way, it is very much appreciated. I'm Curtis Daly. Thank you so much, and see you next time.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.